Hey everyone, welcome into our latest Trade of Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and tonight we're going to recap the full week of developments in the cannabis industry for the week of May 12th, from news in cannabis reform, state-level developments, and a few big earnings, and also some warning signs as well. From Washington, D.C. to Wall Street to the Lone Star State, there's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Let's first begin with the big news on the reform front and Trump's DEA nominee, Terry Cole. Cole, President Donald Trump's new pick to head the DEA, is not giving reform advocates much to feel comfortable about. In written responses to Senators Cory Booker and Alex Padilla, Cole avoided any clear stance on whether he supports moving marijuana from a Schedule I to a Schedule III. His language? Cautious, non-committal. He says he'll give the matter careful consideration after consulting with DEA staff. This is the same Terry Cole who once joked on LinkedIn, quote, "Everyone knows my stance on marijuana after 30 years in law enforcement, so don't even ask." Some of you may know he's previously linked cannabis to youth suicide, and his confirmation now raises some questions about whether the rescheduling process launched under Biden will stall under Trump's watch. Now, let's not jump to conclusions, but the bottom line here is Cole's stance reflects an enforcement-first pivot from the Trump administration. But the key, as I always say here, is President Donald Trump continues to hold the keys in all this. Next up now in PA, where reform momentum just hit a wall, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The Senate Law and Justice Committee officially rejected HB 1200, the House-backed bill to legalize cannabis through a state-run retail model. And again, we don't want this. Not surprising, the idea has faced opposition from both parties, including Republican Senator Dan Laughlin, a longtime legalization advocate who said flat out, state-run cannabis is the wrong message. Even some Democrats admitted the proposal wasn't politically realistic. State Governor Josh Shapiro, who supports adult use, but lawmakers agree he'll have to take a more active role to get something done. So, where do we go from here? The spotlight now shifts to bipartisan private market bills that could gain real traction. The legalization debate in Pennsylvania is far from over. It's just now entering a more practical phase. So progress, not perfection. Over to Texas now, where things are actually moving forward. The House gave strong initial approval to HB 46, a bipartisan bill that would dramatically expand the state's limited medical marijuana program. And this one's big. New qualifying conditions, expanded product formats, and most importantly, access for veterans. This is good. Dispensary licenses would also increase, making the program more accessible, especially in underserved regions. Still, the Senate remains the wild card here, but with 80% of Texans supporting some form of legalization, the pressure is now on. HB 46 is a solid step towards modernizing Texas cannabis policy. And this is good. Now to New York, where cannabis advocates scored a major win. Governor Kathy Hochul signed the state's budget without a controversial provision that would have allowed cops to use the smell of marijuana as probable cause to search vehicles. This is interesting because advocates feared it would reignite racial profiling and contradict legalization. So that clause is now gone, and that's a clear victory for civil rights and cannabis reform. Meanwhile, the legal market in New York is gaining real momentum. $870 million in retail sales, and nearly triple the amount of licensed stores in 2024. Still, equity issues persist. CAURD licensees are calling on Hochul to forgive burdensome loans. And CEO of Curaleaf, Boris Jordan, he wasn't shy, calling New York's $15 million licensing fee a huge barrier to growth. Over to earnings now, where Glass House Brands crushed it. Some of the notable numbers included $44.8 million in Q1 revenue, 45% gross margin, 149% increase in production, and $4.4 million in Adjusted EBITDA. CEO Kyle Kazan credited performance in a brutal California market and teased big growth ahead from the greenhouse to expansion. One thing to point out too, both he and co-founder Graham Farrar will be on the podcast this upcoming Wednesday. That's a podcast you don't want to miss, so mark it in your calendar. Next up, Planet 13, they saw solid revenue growth up 22.5% to $28 million thanks to Florida, but margins did slip and cash reserves dropped to $15.6 million. So some cautious optimism here. Also, Ascend Wellness, they reported but missed expectations. Their numbers included the following: revenue down 5.9%, net loss grew to $19.3 million, but they're still producing positive free cash flow and have $100 million in cash. The balance sheet is holding, but retail softness is a concern. Let's now move to the business side, and the big news of the week involves Village Farms, who spun off its produce division into a new joint venture called Vanguard Food LP and walked away with $40 million in cash and a renewed focus on global cannabis. Investors loved it because Village Farms was one of the week's biggest movers. Also, we'll bring up GLAS.A.U again, who announced a new MSA deal to manage Leaf Brand's Palm Desert Dispensary. This is a great strategic move to expand retail exposure in tourist-heavy California. Next up, the train continues to roll for High Tide, who opened up their 197th store in Canada, this time located in Cornwall, Ontario. The takeaway here, CEO Raj Grover continues to scale with discipline. And finally, the last two things I want to highlight here tonight. Tough week for Grown Rogue, who saw declining flower prices and shrinking margins in their latest numbers. And over in Canada, cannabis company MediPharm Labs is now facing a dissident shareholder campaign led by Apollo Technology, who wants to appoint a brand new board for the entire company. Why? Because Apollo is basing it on excessive executive compensation, poor financial performance, and stock value destruction, where they believe the existing management team has destroyed 99% of stock value, costing shareholders over $1 billion. Wow. Oh, how the times have fallen from grace for MediPharm Labs. All right, everyone, that's a wrap for this week's Trade of Black podcast and a recap of the biggest developments in cannabis for the week of May the 12th. The big themes: political caution, market consolidation, and early signs of financial separation in the cannabis space. As always, we'll keep following the policy shifts, earning movers, and strategic plays that matter most to you, the investor. So with that, let's keep the conversation going. So leave your comments below. What was the biggest moment you found this week in the cannabis industry? Love to get your feedback. And if you have time, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications, and stay connected with us here at the Trade to Black podcast. One last thing, scan this QR code and become a daily baked in newsletter subscriber delivered to your inbox weekdays, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, giving you all the latest information on the business and reform side of the cannabis industry. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. And like I always say, stay open-minded, stay connected, and I'll see you next time on our latest Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Thanks again for watching.